Other cultivators train for decades. Guan buys centuries with stolen years. Every dangerous kill can add more years to his hidden reserve. By 43, he has secretly hoarded over 100,000 years. When a realm blocks him, he simply purchases more cultivation. Even divine tribulation can only force him to spend harder. One breakthrough eventually consumes 12,400 years. Outside the panel, he still looks like a harmless herb farmer. That disguise lets an impossible cultivator keep growing beneath everyone's eyes. High Summers has just ended when the 43-year-old Guan enters the outer Sect city to submit another manuscript. The streets feel quieter than before, and disciples move with guarded expressions instead of their usual careless energy. 4 Demon Extermination Hall disciples suddenly descend near a pavilion and surround a young man leaving the building. The moment their authority token appears, the target loses all resistance and allows himself to be taken away. Guan has watched the Sect hunt demonic spies for years, yet the arrests somehow never seem to end. He refuses to interfere, deciding that political trouble matters only if the people behind it eventually reach his valley. His next stop is the Beast Hall, where he buys 3 Yao beasts to keep Old Man Xian company. Xian has served steadily enough that Guan now treats the aging utility disciple as one of his own people. Leaving the hall with 3 beast-taming bags, Guan unexpectedly runs into Yuke Gaphop, walking alone. Yuke looks exhausted, but his grim expression changes into a smile as soon as he recognizes Guan. Guan notices something more disturbing than fatigue. A faint thread of evil chi buried between Yuke's brows. The devilish aura is carefully concealed, suggesting either dangerous cultivation or contact with something Guan cannot yet identify. When questioned, Yuke dismisses the problem as the result of training too hard and refuses to explain further. Guan does not press him, although the possibility that Yuke has stepped onto a demonic path remains in mind. Before leaving, Yuke warns that a powerful demonic cultivator has infiltrated the outer sect and advises Guan to avoid traveling at night. Guan returns to the Third Medicine Valley rather than changing his routine, because fear would attract more attention than calm. He releases the 3 expensive spirit dogs and places them under Old Man Xian's care. As Guan activates the teleportation formation, he catches a brief flash of worry in the old man's eyes. The formation carries him back to the Medicine Valley, where a familiar golden core aura is waiting near the training grounds. Li Ya has returned and is teaching Guan's disciples sword forms, as though he belongs there. A quick probe shows Li Ya has already reached the first layer of the Golden Core realm at only 45. Li Ya proudly explains that he came specifically to protect Guan from the demonic lord hiding inside the outer sect. Guan immediately questions whether a fresh Golden Core cultivator can actually handle an enemy dangerous enough to alarm the sect. Li Ya takes the challenge personally, reminding him that his breakthrough has made him far stronger than before. Guan points out that Golden Core is merely the level expected of ordinary inner sect disciples. Their argument becomes familiar bickering, with Li Ya hearing concern while Guan privately worries about something completely different. If the demonic lord attacks while Li Ya is nearby, Guan will have far less freedom to reveal his hidden cultivation. He therefore wants Li Ya safe, but he also wants the stubborn prince far away from any battle Guan may need to finish secretly. Guan asks whether Li Ya has recently seen Yuke Gaphop, whose strange devilish aura still bothers him. Li Ya says Yuki joined the Demon Extermination Hall, though he has little relationship with the elders controlling it. The answer confirms nothing, so Guan lets the subject drop, rather than expose how closely he studies other people's cultivation. That night, Li Ya asks about the new Intersect Medicine Valley, awarded to Guan for his successful harvests. Guan carefully hides his Banan pen name, especially while Li Ya's father remains entangled in controversy over investiture of the gods. One careless connection between author and cultivator could expose an identity Guan has protected for years. 10 quiet days pass, and Li Ya even follows Guan on errands to outer sect disciples' immortal caves. Li Ya refuses to guard the other disciples directly, insisting that teaching them swordsmanship already counts as generous protection. One evening, Guan harvests ripe herbs, while Li Ya meditates on the western hill beneath the setting sun. Then, Juan senses the devilish aura everyone has been warning about, far stronger than Foundation establishment. The presence is still no real threat to him, but Guan values secrecy more than the few decades of lifespan one kill might provide. When the aura begins moving away from the valley, he briefly believes the danger has passed. Night proves him wrong, because the intruder has ignored the Medicine Valley and chosen Li Ya instead. From his room, Guan senses a shadowy man watching Li Ya from several hundred feet beyond the hill. Li Yas notices the surveillance, points toward the forest, and pursues the stranger into the darkness. Wen knows the Emperor's son cannot be allowed to die near his doorstep, but he also cannot appear as himself. He wraps his body in the purple-black concealment of demonic shadow art and follows, without exposing his identity. Li Ya lands beside a moonlit mountain river, where Black Shi condenses into the infiltrating demonic cultivator. The stranger recognizes Li Ya as a prince and the inheritor of a famous soul transformation sword intent. Li Ya answers by drawing his sword and releasing 7 silver sword shadows around his body. The demonic cultivator mocks a mere golden core opponent, disappears into devilish chi, and instantly reappears behind him. Li Ya reacts quickly enough to slash backward, sending 7 sword shadows crashing into the forest. The counterattack fails to stop the enemy, whose next strike hurls Li Ya through multiple trees. He finally stops against a shattered trunk, badly injured and unable to match the realm suppressing him. Guan deliberately waits until Li Ya has suffered enough to understand that remaining in the outer sect is suicidal. Once that lesson is clear, the hidden cultivator appears directly behind the demonic attacker. Purple-black energy covers Guan's hand as it settles on the man's shoulder before he can react. Wood branches erupt through the enemy's body, breaking his devilish disguise and revealing an outer sect elder underneath. Li Ya recognizes the dying man as Elder Jin and realizes the conspiracy reaches much deeper than an outside infiltration. Elder Jin barely understands that demonic shadow art has trapped him before green fire consumes his body and soul. Guan takes the storage pouch first, then erases every remaining trace that could connect the death to him. From Li Ya's perspective, a mysterious expert has just erased a nascent soul cultivator, without giving him time to resist. The pressure makes Li Ya estimate the unknown killer, at least around the 5th layer of crossing the void. Guan says nothing, allowing the terrifying misunderstanding to grow, before dispersing the disguise and vanishing into the night. He also senses a hidden protection around Li Ya's soul, suggesting some backer or treasure has been guarding the prince. Whatever that unseen protection tells Li Ya finally calms him, and the wounded prince stops expecting another attack. Back inside the Medicine Valley Pavilion, Guan inspects Elder Jin's storage pouch with several layers of divine sense. He burns anything that could carry a tracking method, curse, or hidden mark before considering the reward from the kill. Elder Jin's death adds 37 years of lifespan to Guan's reserve. Useful, but nowhere near enough to justify reckless exposure. Dawn arrives before Li Ya returns in clean clothes, pretending his injuries came from an ordinary training accident. Guan plays along long enough to pull him upstairs and press dozens of healing pill bottles into his hands. Li Ya finally admits a demonic cultivator attacked him and urges Guan to abandon the dangerous outer Sect Valley. Guan refuses because the Medicine Valley is his foundation, and anyone threatening that foundation can simply be removed. Instead of revealing that truth, he argues that low-grade herb fields are too insignificant to attract serious demonic experts. He pushes Li Ya toward the inner sect, claiming the prince can protect far more people by investigating the conspiracy from there. Guan also suggests the endless spy hunts may hide crimes committed under the demonic path's name rather than stop them. That possibility hits Li Ya hard after seeing Elder Jin exposed as the very kind of traitor the halls claim to hunt. Li Ya finally agrees to leave, believing the decision is his own, rather than exactly what Guan wanted. Before departing, he quietly swears that anyone who harms Guan will eventually regret touching him. The irony is complete. The man Li Ya wants to protect is the same mysterious expert who secretly saved his life. Once Li Ya disappears, Guan stores Elder Jin's pouch inside the 8 Centuries Grotto Heaven and returns to work. In the 3rd Medicine Valley, he deliberately looks troubled until Old Man Xian approaches and asks what happened. Guan describes the danger and emphasizes that Li Ya, a golden core cultivator, was nearly killed while protecting him. He wants the former sect leader to remember that sacrifice, rather than spend the rest of his life silently sweeping paths. Guan complains that the demon extermination halls arrests spies every day while demonic cultivators still wander through the sect. His performance sounds like fear for weak disciples, but beneath it lies a warning that the sect's current system is failing. Old Man Xian admits the cultivation world rarely treats utility disciples as real disciples worth protecting. Coming from a former sect leader, that cynical answer surprises Guan more than the political corruption itself. Xian adds that the new sect leader may be kinder than the previous one and could eventually change the situation, and refuses to push harder, knowing manipulation becomes obvious the moment a supposedly timid disciple speaks too boldly. Back in his own medicine valley, Musim responds to the danger by forcing every utility disciple to learn practical combat spells. Guan allows it because stronger disciples protect themselves better, and the responsibility also sharpsmiths Musim's leadership. A few days later, Yao Pan arrives with the Azure Swan sword, a linked weapon designed to warn her if Guan is attacked. Guan accepts the sword and her concern, while privately knowing the people trying to protect him have no idea how strong he truly is. Simjin soon visits the pavilion and questions why Guan keeps risking himself for utility disciples instead of riding somewhere safer. Answers that his cultivation is higher than theirs, so abandoning them during danger would defeat the reason he accepted responsibility. He hopes the complaint travels upward, because one more influential voice can become another thread of protection around the valley. Simjin counters that privileged cultivators waste time on music, chess, painting, and poetry, despite possessing resources ordinary disciples never touch. The comparison silences her, and she finally admits Guan may be the only person who truly understands her strange priorities, because she does not want that kindred spirit killed. Sim Jin seals the room with talismans and reveals a dangerous secret. Someone inside the Tahan sect is preparing a demonic technique meant to break a cultivator past the lifespan's ceiling, imposed by heaven. The outer sect has become the trial ground because sacrificing low-level disciples openly would stain the reputation of a righteous sect. According to Sim Jin, the endless campaign against demonic spies provides the perfect cover for whatever ritual is being prepared. She knows because her own Chando sect has used similar logic, sacrificing weaker disciples while calling the result an eternal contribution. Guan is disgusted by how easily righteous language can hide methods no different from the demonic path. Sim Jin urges him to abandon the outer sect valley entirely before the planned experiment reaches its final stage. Guan keeps the warning secret as requested, but the line between righteous and demonic cultivation now feels almost meaningless. Before leaving, Sim Jin bargains over the hero in her newest book and refuses to change the character's name from Gon. Guan eventually accepts after she gives him the Hyonium sound art, a rare technique built around destructive sound. The spell can injure internal organs and cloud the senses, covering exactly the kind of combat weakness his existing techniques lack. A month later, Guan delivers the annual herb harvest to the Outer Sect Alchemy Hall and meets Elder Ju Chongnak. The Elder carries the same faint devilish chi Guan previously sensed around Yukigapop. Ju Chongnak also repeats the familiar warning that Guan should move into the inner sect because the outer city is becoming dangerous. Guan finally presses the issue, asking why stronger cultivators are not simply sent to destroy the supposed demonic threat. He also questions the enormous construction project, occupying nearly a quarter of the city. The foundations resemble a sacrificial altar, with spiritual stones embedded throughout a vast network of carefully arranged structures. Ju Chongnak calls it a defensive formation platform, but his evasive answers make Guan trust him even less. Outside the hall, Guan studies the unfinished structure beneath a gray sky and feels the entire city changing around it. The once bright outer sect now resembles a place preparing for blood sacrifice rather than protection. Guan continues his routine and finds Princess Li Hai waiting at one of the immortal caves he tends. She is preparing to enter the inner sect and leaves behind the spirit stones owed for his work. Before he leaves, she unexpectedly asks whether his leg techniques are really as powerful as Li Ya claimed. Gan minimizes his skill, insisting Li Ya exaggerated. After watching another disciple practice the withered wind leg, Princess Li Hai says she still wants to test him someday after he eventually joins the inner sect. Guan accepts the challenge politely because denying too much would sound stranger than simply continuing his weak disciple act. That night, he travels deep into the mountains, after deliberately telling Musim he will be gone until the following day. A major breakthrough creates enormous spiritual disturbance, so Guan needs his absence explained before anyone notices. The outer sect conspiracy has convinced him that the ninth layer of crossing the void is no longer enough. If the Tahan sect contains hidden crossing the void experts, remaining one major realm below them leaves too much uncertainty. Guanta decides that delaying his million-year lifespan milestone is acceptable if immediate strength keeps the Medicine Valley safe. Far from the sect, he senses two nascent soul auras, and recognizes one as the Azure Lake sword fanatic Zhao Ilgam. Zhao Ilgam hovers above the forest with 5 treasured swords circling him, while another powerful cultivator blocks his path. The opponent is Jin Huanjin, the Outer Sect Grand Elder, whose black robe and staff radiate obvious, devilish pressure. Zhao Ilgam openly accuses the Grand Elder of cultivating demonic arts and slaughtering junior Zuffles for personal advancement. Jin Huanjin laughs because he believes the forces behind him are too powerful for a nascent soul swordsman to challenge. Purple runes spread through the forest as the Grand Elder slams down his staff and activates a demonic formation. Zhao Ilgam answers with a sword array, inspired by ideas he claims to have understood from Investiture of the Gods. Guan nearly loses his composure when he hears the words, immortal slaying sword formation, attached to something from his own novel. If cultivators can derive real Dao arts from fictional descriptions, his harmless writing hobby has become much more dangerous than expected. The two experts collide, flattening the surrounding forest as swordlight tears through the Grand Elder's demonic dragon. Zhao Ilsam's self-created formation is impressive enough to threaten a stronger opponent, but it cannot maintain that power for long. Jin Huanjin survives the exchange and prepares to finish the exhausted swordsman before future trouble can grow. Sin decides to interfere without exposing himself, flicking an ordinary leaf wrapped in terrifying sword intent. The leaf crosses the ruined battlefield as a cold streak and punches directly through Jin Huanjin's chest. The Grand Elder abandons his body and escapes as a nascent soul before Guan bothers to strike again. Guan deliberately lets him flee because killing one replaceable elder would earn only a few decades of lifespan. A Livsing survivor can instead carry a warning back to the hidden power controlling the Outer Sect. If that warning fails and the conspiracy still reaches his valley, Goan intends to remove the entire route himself. Zhao Ilgam survives, now convinced the mysterious flying leaf sword immortal has been guiding, rather than threatening him. Gu and travels another 1,000 miles before stopping in an isolated forest and finally opening his hidden lifespan panel. More than 100,000 years remain available, enough to attempt something no normal cultivator could even imagine. He decides that however many simulated tribulations kill him, he will keep purchasing cultivation until the next realm opens. The first investment is 10,000 years, immediately pushing the simulation toward the fusion realm bottleneck. 5 signs divine thunder descends during the breakthrough and destroys the simulated Guan before success. He spends another 400 years and fails again, then repeats the process every few hundred simulated years. 10 consecutive failures finally explain why desperate cultivators choose forbidden methods to cheat their heavenly limits. Guan already possesses powerful movement arts, transformations, and divine abilities, yet the tribulation still crushes every attempt. Thousands more years disappear from the lifespan reserve, without producing the breakthrough he expected. The repeated defeats shake even Guan's patience, because numbers that once felt infinite are suddenly vanishing into one wall. He feeds another 1,200 years into the panel, and watches the simulation challenge the divine thunder, yet again. After more failure, the breakthrough finally succeeds, and the simulated Guan enters the first layer of the fusion realm. The complete cost reaches 12,400 years of purchased cultivation for a single major breakthrough. Guan is stunned by the price, especially because every higher realm may demand even more impossible amounts. Still, a man with his original aptitude reaching fusion before 50 would already be considered a miracle without the lifespan panel. The simulation gives him not only the result but also the accumulated insight of someone who truly cultivated through those. Guan activates the lifespan barrier before allowing the real breakthrough to begin, hiding himself at additional lifespan cost. Spiritual chi rises from the ground in green waves until a massive vortex forms around his concealed position. The fusion realms consumes far more energy than previous breakthroughs, and the disturbance spreads across an enormous distance. Even the Tahan Sect senses the change as forests sway and cultivators throughout multiple outer cities begin searching for the source. Guan finds their panic almost amusing after learning those same leaders considered sacrificing disciples to defy heaven. Great cultivators cross the sky throughout the night, giving him a rare chance to inspect the true strength hidden inside the sect. More than 10 soul transformation experts pass overhead, followed by several crossing the void cultivators. Guan even identifies a powerful member of the Geek clan, explaining why that family confidently maintains influence inside the sect. None of them can detect him through the lifespan barrier. though maintaining perfect concealment burns another 1,000 years. He accepts that cost without hesitation, because secrecy is worth far more than any single block of lifespan. Near dawn, the spiritual storm finally settles, and Guan completes his real breakthrough into the fusion realm. His body and primordial spirit feel closer than ever, while divine sense expands far beyond its previous range. The absence of any visible fusion experts among the search parties suggests Guan has reached one of the highest levels commonly seen nearby. By morning, he is already back in the Medicine Valley, acting as though he spent the night worrying about everyone else. The disciples are still shaken by the mysterious disturbance, and Dong Yu questions why their master returned so quickly. Guan claims he rushed back because he feared something might happen to them. While the sect was in chaos, his concern makes the disciples ashamed that their own weakness keeps becoming another burden for their master. So, Qian suggests they scatter and fend for themselves if staying together keeps Guin trapped in danger. Guan refuses to control their futures and tells everyone they may leave for the outer sect city if they truly prefer it. He also warns that disciples have been disappearing inside the city. So relocation does not automatically mean safety. Whatever they choose, Guan promises the bond created in the Medicine Valley will not disappear with distance. The statement is sincere because someone chasing extreme longevity must eventually accept countless partings and deaths. Guan has learned not to dictate another person's fate unless the relationship is one he truly cannot release. Dang Yu is first to reject leaving, reminding everyone that few masters personally refine pills for utility disciples. The Medicine Valley never needed so many workers. Yet Guan accepted them anyway and never reduced their support. Dong Yu's greatest regret is not danger, but failing to stand forward during an earlier crisis the way Su Han did. Since Su Han reached Foundation establishment, Dong Yu has blamed only himself for allowing that gap to grow. His response spreads through the group, turning fear into determination rather than an excuse to abandon the valley. Guan watches them choose their own loyalty and understands that protecting this quiet place now matters far beyond the herbs growing there. The disciples' mood improves, but Guan keeps watching the unfinished heaven-mending platform through divine sense from 1,000 miles away. Spirit stones continue pouring into the structure, yet even his current realm cannot immediately identify what the completed formation will do. The sect remains unstable for 10 more days, and several frightened disciples abandon their immortal caves around the city. Their departure costs Guan some passive lifespan income, but he barely cares because 3 medicine valleys now support him. His priority is ending the crisis without dragging his hidden strength into public view. Guan has no ambition to become a savior, because every rescued group eventually creates another conflict somewhere else. At Xi'an Valley, Nahan questions the strange disturbances that sent great cultivators crossing the sky for an entire month. One casually blames a demonic invasion and mentions that Li Ya was wounded badly enough to move into the inner sect. Nahan immediately burns a communication talisman, and Guan realizes the information is probably traveling directly toward the emperor. Rather than chase politics, Guan returns to planting, because building his valleys still feels like a better use of strength. The real crisis arrives when the sect orders every outer disciple to gather inside the city, on the completed heaven-mending platform. The structure stretches for more than 10 miles and surrounds a giant pillar carved with channels resembling human meridians. Guan watches remotely as tens of thousands of disciples pour inside, while the city gates allow entry but no exit. Su and Jingum sense danger first and attempt to move against the incoming crowd. Suhan draws his sword to create an escape route, but Demon Extermination Hall members overwhelm both disciples before they can break free. Talismans seal their cultivation and force them onto the platform alongside everyone else. Guan does not strike immediately because one careless intervention would destroy the identity he has protected for decades. By noon, roughly 100,000 disciples cover the platform, while rumors claim the gathering is merely another spy purge. Many innocent disciples relax after hearing that explanation, never realizing the gates have already trapped them inside. Yaopan spots Suhan and Jingum wounded among the prisoners and quietly searches for someone capable of freeing them. Her only realistic option is Yuki Gapop, despite the fact that their personal connection ended long ago. She lowers her pride and asks for help, and Yuki unexpectedly agrees to pull the 2 captives back toward her. Nearby, Gong Yung watches from a pavilion with an elderly expert, who has already sensed terrifying divine sense sweeping the city. Gong Yung came to kill a traitor, but the scale of the coming ritual is larger than anything she expected. A red umbrella suddenly rises above the platform and expands until a pale golden barrier locks the entire outer city. A black-robed cultivator named Chu Hian appears beneath it and releases the crushing pressure of crossing the void. He claims the Demon Extermination Hall has failed to eliminate spies and announces that his purge will begin with the hall itself. The umbrella activates, forcing Yuke and multiple hall members to collapse as hidden devilish chi tears from their bodies. The supposed hunters of demonic cultivators are exposed as demonic cultivators themselves, validating Guan's worst suspicions. Yuke barely manages to warn Yaopan to run before black blood pours from his mouth and his cultivation begins collapsing. Chuha then turns the formation toward everyone on the platform, rather than stopping after the real traitors are exposed. Blood-red script spreads beneath 100,000 disciples and locks their bodies in place. Yaopan's linked white spirit sword cries at her waist, while the formation suppresses every attempt to resist. Chu Hian declares the entire outer sect irredeemably contaminated and prepares to refine everyone inside it at once. 1,000 miles away, the azure swan sword beside Guan suddenly trembles violently in its sheath. The linked weapon tells him Yaopan is trapped somewhere beyond normal recall, and Guan's expression changes immediately. Instead of physically entering the city, he seizes the sword through sword intent and converts that distant connection into an attack. The technique is the Tai Chang Startling Divine Sword at Mastery Realm. Driven from the safety of his medicine valley. Above the platform, Chu Hian raises the demon-subduing umbrella to complete the refinement of everyone below. Before the ritual can finish, Guan's sword appears outside the golden barrier wrapped in intent no divine sense can penetrate. Chu Hian has only enough time to question the unknown attacker before the sword intent erupts. The first impact shatters the pale barrier, surrounding the entire city, and gives every trapped disciple a glimpse of hope. Chu Hian pours, crossing the void power into the umbrella, forcing the treasure to burn at maximum strength. Guan's descending sword tears straight through that defense, destroying the umbrella and running through Chu Hian's body. The weapon crashes into the platform like a meteor, then releases sword intent through every blood rune carved into the formation. The giant central pillar bursts apart, and the restraints holding 100,000 disciples disappear almost instantly. Yaopan regains her power, while Suhan and Jingam stand beside her as the survivors turn toward the sword that saved them. Chu Hian remains suspended above them for only a moment before sword light erupts through his body. His physical body and primordial spirit are both erased, leaving no chance for another escape, like Jin Huan Jin's. Killing a crossing the void elder rewards Guan with 93 additional years of lifespan. Gang Yong is shaken less by Chu Hian's death than by the ritual itself, which she identifies as the Universe Nirvana Array. Old Man Xian watches from the Third Medicine Valley and quietly guesses that the mysterious attacker has reached fusion. Sim, Jin, and other distant observers begin wondering whether the Flying Leaf Sword Immortal and this two swordsmen could be the same person. Guan is not satisfied with saving the disciples, because the sect needs a warning stronger than another anonymous intervention. Still sitting at his desk, he drives the remote sword across the platform and carves two enormous characters into the stone. The words read Righteous Path, each stroke filled with sword intent, sharp enough to shake even the great cultivators arriving afterward. Guan then sends the Azure Swan sword racing home, but an unfamiliar fusion realm expert begins chasing it through the sky. The pursuer is a blue-robed Taoist, carrying a whisk who demands the identity of the swordsman controlling the weapon from afar. Guan refuses to answer, and instead releases another technique through the flying sword. Thunderclouds gather around the pursuer as azure lightning fills the sky like coiling dragons. The Taoist raises a mountain of golden light and tries to trap the sword behind a defensive field. One strike from Guan splits the defense, while the next cracks a wall of compressed space like glass. The blue-robed expert retreats repeatedly until Guan's sword point finally stops at his chest. Rather than kill him, Guan taps the man's chest 3 times with the blade and lets the humiliation carry the message. The Taoist gives up pursuit because he now understands the unknown swordsman can defeat him inside the same realm. Guan recalls the Azure Swan sword only after letting it circle long enough that no observer can trace the exact destination. The exchange teaches him something valuable. His combat ability inside fusion is much stronger than his cautious estimates suggested. Ordinary cultivators spend thousands of years refining techniques, while Guan's panel has already given him complete mastery over several arts. Even so, he refuses to become reckless and maintains the rule that standing a realm above an enemy is always safer. The aftermath inside the outer sect becomes impossible to suppress because too many survivors witnessed the attempted sacrifice. 100,000 disciples openly cursed Chu Hian, while great cultivators study the sword tent carved into righteous path. Back in the Medicine Valley, Guan plays the role of a clueless cultivator, while search parties sweep the surrounding sky. The next morning, Yaopan returns with Su Han and Jingum and recounts the entire disaster before the other disciples. Musim is furious that a righteous sect nearly refined its own outer disciples into a forbidden formation. So, Qian even suggests abandoning the Tahan sect completely, arguing that herbs can be grown anywhere, and rejects the idea because his foundation, valleys, and 8 centuries grotto heaven are all tied to this place. He also points out that powerful cultivators inside the sect oppose the ritual, proving the institution is not controlled by one faction. Suan reveals that Yuke Gapop survived, but his cultivation has been drained so badly that recovery may be impossible. Guan immediately offers Yuke a place in the Medicine Valley if the former Hall disciple is willing to live quietly. Yaopan remains unsettled after seeing how helpless ordinary cultivators were beneath Chu Hian's formation. She finally understands why Guan once argued that cultivation itself matters more than romantic ideas about simply hiding together. Yaopan decides to pursue strength seriously so that one day she can stand beside him when a true catastrophe appears. Guan supports the ambition but warns her not to let one terrifying day turn into obsession. Their familiar teasing returns, showing the crisis changed her priorities without destroying the persons Guan already knew. Investigations now spread from the ruined Demon Extermination Hall toward the main city Elder Hall and other political factions. Guan welcomes that pressure because the Tahan sect has too many competing powers for Chu Hian's allies to erase everything quietly. He privately decides that, if the sect ever becomes completely rotten, he may eventually force it to change after becoming strong enough. 2 days later, Guan senses Go Zhang arriving in the Third Medicine Valley with the same blue-robed Taoist his sword defeated. The visitor has no idea he is standing before the person who humiliated him in the sky. A lifespan probe reveals the Taoist is a first-layer fusion realm cultivator with a ceiling of roughly 3,500 years. Guan also recognizes his connection to the powerful Geek clan, whose hidden foundation continues to surprise him. Go Zhang introduces the man as Vice Sect leader Jihan Chen and treats the visit as a matter of great importance. Jihan Chen greets Guan warmly because both men are considered connected to the Geek clan through different relationships. Guan maintains his ordinary Valley Master persona and follows them upstairs without showing the slightest recognition. For Jihan Chen, the mysterious swordsman remains an unreachable fusion expert somewhere outside his understanding. For Guan, the meeting becomes another reminder that powerful people can stand directly beside him without noticing what he really is. The failed sacrifice has therefore produced an unexpected advantage. The sect's strongest factions are now watching one another instead of Guan. That political balance gives the Medicine Valley room to survive while its supposedly weak master continues accumulating lifespan. One intends to use that breathing space exactly as before, planting herbs, protecting his people, and purchasing cultivation only when necessary. The outer sect thinks a mysterious sword immortal changed its fate, while the man responsible quietly returns to checking his fields. Behind closed doors, Vice Sect leader Jihan Chen explodes in anger over the attempted sacrifice of 100,000 disciples. He orders Banan to record the truth and expose the sect's crimes, so the cultivation world cannot pretend nothing happened. When silently finds the request absurd, because the furious Vice Sect leader is unknowingly asking the culprit's secret savior to praise himself. Jihan Chen admits the mysterious swordsman saved not only the disciples but also the reputation of the entire Tahan sect. Without that intervention, the destruction of an outer sect could easily have been blamed on outside demonic forces. Jihan Chen also confesses that he chased the anonymous swordsman and was defeated effortlessly, despite being a fusion cultivator himself. That loss shattered the confidence of a man who had spent years believing only ancient monsters could still threaten him. Gu An pretends reluctance when asked to write the account, allowing Go Zhang to argue that serving the sect requires accepting some risk. Once Guan finally agrees, he asks for payment that surprises both men, because it contains no treasure or combat technique. He wants Third's Medicine Valley expanded until all land within 100 miles belongs to him. The required herb quota can remain unchanged, giving Guan freedom to fill the additional territory for his own long-term plans. Jian Chen offers far more, including a Tier 6 spirit protection formation capable of gathering and preserving spiritual qi. Guan explains that his poor aptitude makes flashy treasures dangerous, while farming herbs supports both his cultivation disguise and writing. Gojong confirms this simple personality is genuine, making the request seem modest rather than suspicious. Within days, the paperwork is approved. Nearby inner Sect caves are relocated, and the expanded Medicine Valley officially becomes Guan's domain. The protection formation creates another layer of cover because future cultivation growth can be blamed on resources accumulated from enormous herb fields. If outsiders eventually see him at Golden Core, or even Nascent Soul, Guan can claim pills and spiritual qi, slowly force the breakthrough. Gojong's also grants permission for 20 utility disciples to live there, despite inner Sect rules, normally forbidding such arrangements. Guan transfers 7 trusted workers into the new valley, while Mu Sim and So Qian remain connected to the original location. For the first time since the crisis began, the future looks peaceful enough for Guan to focus on expansion instead of conspiracies. A month after the heaven-mending platform disaster, the outer Sect city has recovered much of its old activity. There Guan unexpectedly meets Gong Yang, whom he previously noticed watching the ritual from a distant pavilion. She is accompanied by the hunched old expert who stood beside her during the crisis. A lifespan probe reveals that man is at the 9th layer of soul transformation, with hidden devilish qi inside him. Guan is impressed by Gong Yang's confidence because she casually brings such a dangerous clansman into the outer city. Then she produces a token revealing she has somehow become the new outer Sect Grand Elder. Gong Yang treats the promotion as almost trivial and jokes that she may eventually take the Sect leader's seat. Wan As asks whether becoming Sect leader would make her loyal to the Tahan Sect or remain tied to the Thousand Autumns Pavilion. She answers without hesitation that the Tahan Sect would become her priority because its position exceeds anything the pavilion can offer. The answer explains why countless pavilion spies operate inside the sect without ever seriously trying to destroy it. Even ambitious demonic cultivators often prefer stealing a place inside the stronger righteous institution rather than replacing it. Gong Yong warns Guan never to reveal the azure vine tree to any pavilion cultivator. She claims the rare plant now belongs only to the two of them, while Guan privately considers it his alone. When Gong Yong offers another reward, Guan uses the chance to request promotion for Yaopan in the law enforcement hall. He asks for nothing else because the expanded Medicine Valley already gives him more practical value than ordinary treasures. Gong Yong is pleased by his restraint and promises future high-grade seeds that Guan can grow and return as mature herbs. Then she gives him a strange assignment. Listen for information about the mysterious author Banan. Wan As has to suppress laughter because one faction wants him to write about himself, while another now wants him to investigate himself. He pretends the search will be difficult, since his movements rarely extend beyond the Medicine Valley. Gong Yang insists Banan must mingle with low-level cultivators to gather writing material, and therefore can eventually be found. Anne accepts the task and leaves her mansion, carrying another valuable bag of high-grade seeds. His next stop is the heaven-mending platform, which has transformed from execution ground into the outer sect's greatest attraction. So, tens of thousands of cultivators sit around the giant character's righteous path, studying the sword intent Guan left behind. Zhao Ilgam and his son are among them, while Guan's own disciple Su Han is also deep in comprehension. Su Han's understanding of the heaven-hating divine sword has changed his entire bearing and accelerates progress as a swordsman. Guan watches without interrupting, listening as disciples debate the identity of the mysterious expert now, called Sword Venerable Budo. Rumors claim Budo rivals the vice sect leader and might even be strong enough to challenge the sect leader. Sect leader Chu Changyi publicly gives the unknown swordsman authority to punish corruption in the name of righteousness. Guan immediately recognizes the proclamation as political self-protection, rather than a sincere attempt to hand authority to a stranger. By praising the savior, Chu Changyi reduces suspicion that his own family shares responsibility for Chu Hian's crimes. The tactic works, and public anger shifts from demanding the sect leader's removal toward arguing about which faction should be blamed. Juan refuses to carry any of that burden and heads instead to purchase enough seeds for 100 miles of future farmland. The thought of transforming the entire territory into green herb fields excites him more than titles, affections, or public fame ever could. He considers the bargain excellent. One dangerous intervention saved his people and indirectly bought him an enormous cultivation foundation. Back at the Third Medicine Valley, the transferred disciples clear forest, remove weeds, and prepare soil from morning until night. Spirit dogs roam the surrounding hills, making the expanded territory feel more like a peaceful rural estate than an inner sect stronghold. Guan finds Simjin waiting in his pavilion again, already browsing the bookshelves as though the room belongs partly to her. She has heard he plans to write about Sword Venerable Budo and warns that the mysterious expert's fame has spread beyond the dynasty. Sword cultivators from the Great Wu dynasty are reportedly preparing to visit and challenge the unknown swordsman. Because Bannon writes about Budo, outsiders may assume the author has some private connection to the expert. Sim Jin promises she has never revealed Bannon's identity, refusing even when her own father questioned her. Guan pretends complete ignorance of Budo and claims he simply gathers stories from whatever the outer sect happens to witness. Sim Jin leaves him a copy of her latest manuscript and tells him to be careful once outside cultivators begin arriving. The title sounds serious, but Guan discovers the contents are far more scandalous than her previous restrained writing. He is astonished by how boldly Sim Jin writes private relationships when the quiet woman barely discusses such topics in person. Guan secretly hopes the collection hall refuses publication before the manuscript can spread under names suspiciously close to his own. Despite his complaints, he reads the entire thing through the night because the story is annoyingly entertaining. At dawn, Guan continues the Medicine Valley tradition of drilling every disciple before assigning the day's farming work. Some workers clear forest while others sow seeds, and Guan treats the physical labor as another form of patient cultivation. The disciples accept the workload because every additional field eventually means more herbs, more pills, and more resources shared among them. 5 peaceful days later, Simjin storms back furious because the book collection hall rejected her manuscript. Guan nearly laughs, but her stubbornness turns the rejection into a new plan to circulate the story privately through the inner sect. He advises cutting the most outrageous sections, while Simjin refuses because censorship only makes her more determined. Siguan relaxes once he realizes a privately copied manuscript will spread far slower than an officially distributed book. Winter eventually covers the mountains in snow, and Guan visits Qian Valley expecting another ordinary harvest. Instead, Nahan meets him immediately and leads him toward a powerful stranger newly arrived from the imperial side. The emperor is sent man to use whatever Qian Valley produces in order to accelerate an important breakthrough. Juan has never cared about owning Qiana Valley's harvest, because his real interest lies in personally collecting mature herbs. The arrangement therefore threatens none of his core plans, as long as he remains the person allowed to reap the fields. What matters more is the stranger's aura, which suggests another figure connected to powers far above ordinary Medicine Valley politics. Guan keeps his curiosity hidden, continuing to behave like a cultivator whose greatest concern is whether the next crop survives winter. This disguise grows stronger with every year because the people around him now expect farming obsession rather than martial ambition. The more land he receives, the easier it becomes to explain wealth, pills, formations, and even future improvements in visible cultivation. Meanwhile, every mature herb quietly expands the long-term engine behind his lifespan accumulation. Guan therefore treats the expanded valley not as property but as a machine for buying more time. Political factions see an unambitious farmer, while Guan sees thousands of future years waiting beneath the soil. The Tier 6 formation further concentrates spiritual qi, increasing crop quality without requiring Guan to display any secret technique. Utility disciples also provide eyes, labor, and social cover across a territory too large for one supposedly ordinary man to manage. By rewarding them generously, Guan turns practical necessity into loyalty without demanding worship or dangerous devotion. His approach is simple. Let talented people chase fame, while he quietly expands the resources that make immortality possible. The aftermath of the Outer Sect disaster has therefore improved his position far more than any direct reward from the enemy he killed. Guan gained lifespan from Chuhan, reputation through Banan, political protection through Budo, and land through his Valley Master identity. None of those identities openly connect, allowing one person to benefit from several worlds that believe they are dealing with different men. Only a handful of close companions suspect Guan is unusual, and none understand the true scale of his cultivation. Even powerful elders now willingly deliver seeds to him because his visible value lies in agriculture rather than combat. That misunderstanding is exactly what Guan wants. Since the safest expert is one nobody thinks needs to be watched. For now, he has no reason to challenge sect politics again, unless corruption threatens the people or land under his care. Instead, winter becomes another season of farming, writing, hidden observation, and slowly rising lifespan. One lets Sword Venerable Budo become a legend outside, while the supposed valley farmer remains almost painfully ordinary. As new powers gather around Xi'an Valley, Guan prepares to watch first and reveal nothing unless the situation forces his hand. At Xi'an Valley, Guan meets Yo Ryun, the Emperor's foremost sword attendant and a ninth-layer soul transformation swordsman. A lifespan probe shows Yo Ryun is only in his 40s despite possessing a ceiling near 30,000 years. Nahan explains that few swordsmen in the dynasty can match Yo Ryun's understanding of the sword Dao. Yo Ryun immediately questions Guan about Sword Venerable Budo, whose identity remains unknown even after killing Chu Hian. Guan claims ignorance but points him toward the sword intent, still preserved on the heaven-mending platform. The suggestion works perfectly, and the proud swordsman leaves at once to measure himself against Budo's remaining intent. Guan returns to harvesting, amused that another imperial expert is now chasing a shadow created by his hidden identity. After the spring festival, he visits the outer city and finds the platform even more crowded with sword cultivators. Zhao Ilgam, his son, and several familiar disciples are still meditating around the enormous Righteous Path characters. Then, Guan notices an ordinary-looking cultivator hovering directly above the stone, without releasing any remarkable aura. Only the lifespan probe exposes the truth. The stranger is a ninth layer crossing the void expert with a monstrous lifespan ceiling. The figure is not human at all, but a Yao cultivator, hiding every trace of demonic qi. Guan is startled that even his fusion realm senses could mistake the stranger for an ordinary man without the panel. The hidden expert's interest in sword intent reminds Guan that demons, humans, and ghosts may all chase the same Dao. He later learns this figure is the Yellow Springs Demon Emperor, another dangerous name drawn by Budo's growing legend. Guan immediately decides to keep an even lower profile because every new admirer increases the chance that some monster will find him. He has already completed a short account of the platform disaster, titled Righteous and Demonic. Go Zhong later arrives drinking and happily reports that the book has spread across the entire Tahan dynasty. Public attention has shifted from the older Tahan immortal venerable stories toward the Sect scandal and Sword Venerable Budo. Gohan expects the excitement to fade eventually, but Go Zhong is far more interested in demanding another chapter. Then Go Zhong produces a privately circulated book, whose protagonist is suspiciously named Gaon. One recognizes Sim Jin's rejected manuscript immediately, and realizes she printed it herself exactly as threatened. He pretends never to have seen the book, and even questions whether the ridiculous story could possibly involve him. Go Zhong explains the manuscript never passed through the book collection hall, and instead spreads hand to hand among inner disciples. Once alone, Guan reads the entire work, and reluctantly admits Sim Jin improved dramatically after studying other popular stories. The fictional Gon is written as a free and chivalrous man, so the embarrassing name association, at least, does not damage Guan's reputation. He closes the book and returns to a far more important goal, filling the entire 100-mile territory with herbs. The Geek clan soon sends another huge shipment of seeds, with even the lowest varieties reaching the 4th grade. A messenger hints that the clan's third young miss personally selected many of them because she values banana. Guan welcomes the support because high-grade seeds mean future lifespan without requiring him to spend spirit stones buying them himself. He plans to fill all 20 utility disciple positions and give each worker a Yao beast to strengthen the valley's operations. Guan also brings Old Man Xi'an into the outer Sect city so the former Sect leader can personally see Righteous Path. Outside the utility hall, a hawker tries selling Guan a mysterious book for 2 low-grade spirit stones. The supposed treasure is merely another copy of the Tahan's secret records, making Guan quietly question how private the manuscript really remains. He walks past after dryly noting that he writes Investiture of the Gods and has no need for cheap imitations. Half an hour later, Guan leaves the utility hall, with 11 excited new disciples following behind him. Their numbers make him look unexpectedly important, and the recruits assume anyone allowed to take so many workers must possess serious backing. Guan leads the group toward the heaven-mending platform, a place most low-level utility disciples have never dared approach. Old Man Xian is already studying the Righteous Path characters when Guan notices the Yellow Springs Demon Emperor nearby. The disguised demon traces movements in the air that Guan immediately recognizes as part of the Tai Ching startling divine sword. He is comprehending an actual sword technique from leftover intent alone, proving his talent is far beyond ordinary experts. That sight convinces Guan he must eventually upgrade his own sword art with another enormous lifespan investment. 10 or 20,000 years may be necessary just to maintain his advantage against monsters who can learn from residual intent. Before he can leave, a gray-haired Taoist suddenly laughs and declares that he has finally understood the mysterious sword's intent. The old man leaps into the sky and prepares to destroy the very calligraphy that gave him enlightenment. Gan nearly intervenes, furious that someone would steal his sword insight and then smash the brushwork preserving it. He is spared the exposure when Yo Ryun's roar shakes the entire platform and stops the attack. Other powerful cultivators also rise, while even the Yellow Springs Demon Emperor openly displays displeasure. Guan's probe identifies the reckless Taoist as a second layer crossing the void cultivator near the end of his lifespan. The old man's short remaining life explains his madness, but not enough experts are willing to let him destroy a shared place of enlightenment. When he mocks Yo Ryun for being only soul transformation, another crossing the void elder immediately challenges the insult. The would-be vandal realizes he is outnumbered and flees rather than fight an entire gathering of hidden monsters. Go Zhong and another elder chase him beyond the city, turning the platform disturbance into another demonstration of Sect power. Guan recognizes an unexpected consequence of his calligraphy. Powerful experts now guard the outer city almost constantly. A place once dangerous for weak disciples has become unusually secure, simply because everyone wants access to Budo's sword intent. The new utility disciples return with Guan, buzzing about soul transformation and crossing the void experts they saw in a single afternoon. Old Man Xian appears changed as well, and Guan instinctively checks the former sect leader's cultivation. Xian has quietly climbed 2 full layers of qi refining in a surprisingly short period. Guan says nothing, because he always expected a former master who fell through deviation to rebuild faster than ordinary beginners. Back at the Third Medicine Valley, So Qian settles the new recruits and effectively moves himself into Guan's expanded territory. Guan welcomes him because So Qian has followed him faithfully since their youth and remains one of his oldest genuine bonds. The longer Guan lives, the more he understands how rare such relationships will become after centuries begin separating him from everyone else. Old Man Xian returns to solitary meditation beneath a great tree, while other disciples resume their own training. Seasons pass, and more than 2 years disappear without another catastrophe reaching the Medicine Valley. At 46, Guan finally stands on a mountaintop and sees herb fields stretching toward every horizon. It took 2 full years to transform the 100-mile territory into the green foundation he imagined. Some gardens lie beyond distant woods, yet every section belongs to a system designed around future harvests and lifespan. When one worker leaves for military service, Guan gives So Qian authority to recruit the replacement himself. Delegating such choices tests the younger man's judgment, while also freeing Guan from personally managing every ordinary problem. His attention returns to the outer city when another surge of sword intent rises from the heaven-mending platform. 4 people have achieved meaningful sword Dao breakthroughs there during the last 2 years. Budo's calligraphy has turned the platform into a recognized holy land for sword cultivators across the entire dynasty. The Tan Sect openly allows outsiders to study it, gaining prestige instead of trying to monopolize the opportunity. Guan grudgingly admires the Elder Hall for transforming a scandal into a source of reputation and influence. Meanwhile, most of the expanded valley's herbs are still maturing, but his total lifespan continues rising steadily. With immediate danger reduced, Guan plans to resume a quiet habit of feeding 5 years of lifespan into cultivation every night. The first layer of fusion no longer feels comfortable when the platform keeps attracting experts from increasingly distant powers. He wants a larger safety margin before some old monster reaches the valley and forces him to fight seriously. During a routine walk by the river, someone suddenly lands behind Guan without making a sound. The visitor is Li Ya, now using a concealment technique good enough to briefly surprise even his old friend. Guan is genuinely happy to see him, but immediately notices that Li Ya's entire bearing has changed. After nearly dying to the demonic cultivator years earlier, Li Ya abandoned his careless attitude and cultivated with real discipline. He jokingly offers to test his new strength against Guan, who refuses while pretending the realm gap makes such a duel unfair. The irony is that Guan believes the fight would be unfair in the exact opposite direction. Walking together, Li Ya explains that he went straight to the Elder Hall. After leaving the outer sect, the heaven-mending platform disaster erupted before he received answers, and the news left him terrified Guan might have been caught inside. Li Ya even returned to the Medicine Valley searching for him, then resumed seclusion only after learning everyone survived. He now refuses to remain the kind of cultivator who must constantly rely on stronger people to escape impossible battles. Gun respects the change because nearly dying produced growth instead of turning Li Ya bitter or reckless. The reason for today's visit is imperial. Li Ya and Princess Li Hayanu are being sent to the 100 Clans Assembly. The gathering will place the dynasty's younger geniuses against one another and expose which factions have truly grown stronger. For Li Ya, it is another chance to prove himself after years of frustration and dangerous cultivation. For Guan, it is a useful opportunity to observe how his friend's strength compares with other rising figures. He remains careful not to show too much interest, preserving the image of an ordinary valley master who knows little about high-level competition. Li Ya sees a dependable older brother figure, never realizing Guan has already entered a realm far beyond his expectations. That gap allows Guan to support him without stealing the victories Li Ya needs to earn for himself. Guan therefore listens rather than offering forbidden shortcuts, just as he allowed Li Ya to suffer before saving him years earlier. His hidden strength remains insurance, not a replacement for the growth of everyone around him. As the 100 Clans Assembly approaches, the Medicine Valley continues producing herbs while distant geniuses prepare to compete for fame, and quietly measures all of it against a different scoreboard: lifespan, secrecy, and whether his people can survive long enough to matter. Li Ya explains that the 100 Clans Assembly ranks the strongest younger cultivators from the top factions of 9 dynasties. Victory brings reputation, political weight, and cultivation opportunities, valuable enough to change a clan's future. Guan teases Li Ya about defeating the Geek clan's third young miss, and Li Ya answers with unusual confidence. Something in Li Ya's chi and blood now carries a faint Yao beast quality that Guan cannot immediately explain. They drink late into the night, while the Medicine Valley disciples gather around Li Ya to hear soul stories about the coming assembly. Even Old Man Xian joins, prompting Li Ya to remember the former sect leader who once dominated multiple rankings. According to Li Ya, that legendary sect leader remained unbeaten through several stages before supposedly dying after Chai deviation. Guan says nothing, while quietly comparing that description with the old man currently sitting among his utility disciples. The conversation turns toward the hidden dragon ranking, reserved for elite geniuses under 100 years old. Most disciples believe Zhu Dongyu will dominate, while Li Ya openly promises to hand the famous prodigy his first real defeat. Old Man Xian laughs and reveals that an even more talented genius has been hidden inside the Tahan sect. The young man's name is No Seiyan, and he reached Golden Core at only 30. The Medicine Valley disciples are stunned, because most are already older than 30 without approaching that realm. Guan remembers another mysterious man who appeared around Shan Valley, and begins suspecting that No Sishan is connected to larger imperial plans. Li Ya quietly marks the name as another rival he intends to defeat at the assembly. At dawn, Li Ya departs with his usual confidence, promising to return after becoming famous throughout the cultivation world. Guan briefly envies that fearless ambition, then remembers how often Li Ya's courage has left him bleeding. The lesson is simple: admiration is harmless, but copying Li Ya's recklessness would destroy Guan's entire survival strategy. Guan resumes his routine, feeding 5 years of lifespan into cultivation while traveling toward Cheyenne Valley. There he finds Yo Ryun sparring with No Seiyan, who uses a huge gourd-shaped fan despite his delicate appearance. Yo Ryun has deliberately suppressed his realm, yet No Seiyan still dismantles several sword moves with alarming ease. A lifespan probe places No Seiyan at first layer Golden Core, with a ceiling of nearly 5,000 years. The ceiling is among the strongest human aptitudes Guan has ever observed, even though No Seiyan spent stuck after reaching Golden Core. That strange stagnation suggests an unusual cultivation art rather than simple lack of talent. Guan then feeds 3 captured monkey demons, enormous 5th-grade spirit fruits, treating them no differently because of their species. The creatures trust him because Guan judges usefulness and loyalty more than the labels righteous cultivators place on bloodlines. After the harvest, No Sion asks Yo-ryun when he plans to cross his next tribulation and challenge Sword Venerable Budo. Yo-ryun says the tribulation may come within half a year, but admits Budo's sword intent destroyed his desire to challenge immediately. No Sion keeps encouraging him, arguing that even a defeat against Budo would make the first challenger famous. Guan quickly realizes No Sion constantly pushes everyone around him toward dangerous opponents. The same man has urged Nahan to challenge top spear cultivators, and even tried sending demons against stronger monsters. No Sion then approaches Guan and insists the supposedly ordinary Valley Master must secretly want some kind of fame. Guan answers exactly as always. He wants flowers, grass, peaceful farming, and absolutely no position beneath heaven. No Sion declares his own goal is becoming first under heaven, without needing endless ordinary cultivation. Amused, Guan offers a bargain: win the 100 Clans Assembly, and he will finally learn one of No Sin's techniques. No Sans had not planned to attend, but the challenge makes him decide to leave the very next day. Afterward, Yo-ryun warns Guan that encouraging No Sion may be more dangerous than it looks. Whenever No Sion cultivates, he reportedly falls into strange dreams where he becomes emperors, sword emperors, or even demon emperors. In every dream, No Sion reaches the peak of the world, raising the possibility that something extraordinary hides behind his madness. Guan immediately stops treating him as a harmless eccentric and adds another unknown variable to the people worth watching. Before Sosion returns from the assembly, Guan privately decides to race upward and reach the 9th layer of fusion himself. Back at the Medicine Valley, he finds Yaopan inside his attic, holding one of the scandalous books he desperately wishes would disappear. Since the Outer Sect disaster, Yaopan has trained seriously and risen to become a law enforcement hall deacon with real authority. She first jokes about Guan's reading habits, then reveals that the visit actually concerns his disciple Suhan. Suhan's heaven-hating divine sword has attracted attention after he used it repeatedly while killing outside the sect. The technique is not merely a family inheritance, but a forbidden sword art belonging to the sword sect of the Great Wu dynasty. Sword sect cultivators are already moving to capture Suhan, and Yaopan doubts the Tahan sect will risk conflict for one outer disciple. She has temporarily hidden Suhan's inside the law enforcement hall, but that protection will collapse if the sword sect sends serious experts. Guan asks for time to investigate because he refuses to abandon a disciple before understanding why the technique is forbidden. Yaopan warns that protecting someone for one crisis is different from carrying his entire future, but leaves the decision to Guan's scad. Guan goes directly to Simjin, partly because her background reaches farther than Yaopan's, and partly because she owes him for ruining his name. Simjin initially dismisses the sword sect as a minor problem her Chandos sect can easily pressure. Once Guan explains the heaven-hating divine sword, her confidence disappears, and she admits the situation is much more serious. The art is forbidden across the entire Great Wu dynasty, not simply inside the faction that originally created it. A century earlier, one cultivator used the sword art to slaughter tens of thousands before a Chanso sect elder finally stopped him. Sim explains the technique becomes stronger through hatred, allowing even poor aptitude to break limits that ordinary cultivation cannot cross. That advantage carries a terrible price because deeper hatred eventually pushes the user toward Chi deviation and uncontrollable killing. The sword sect destroyed its official manuals, but scattered copies continue resurfacing throughout the cultivation world. Guan realizes Suhan may genuinely become a disaster if he keeps feeding anger into a technique designed around hatred. He will protect a disciple from injustice, but he will not defend future massacres simply because that disciple once belonged to his valley. Simjin says every major sect opposes the technique, making direct protection a path toward endless enemies. The accepted solution is equally brutal. Suhan can publicly break the sword art before the sword sect. Breaking it does not mean forgetting a technique. It means destroying meridians and spiritual root until the cultivator becomes permanently crippled. Suan leaves Simjin's cave understanding that neither surrender nor blind resistance is acceptable. The next day, he heads toward the outer city after secretly feeding another 100 years of lifespan into his own cultivation. That private investment has already moved him noticeably closer to higher fusion layers, while everyone else assumes he barely cultivates. Guan now faces a different kind of problem from sect corruption. Saving Su-Han without preserving the flaw that may destroy him later. The answer cannot simply be overwhelming force, because the technique itself is the enemy as much as the sword sect. If Guan crushes every pursuer but leaves heaven-hating divine sword unchanged, Su-Han may eventually become the very threat they fear. For once, hidden strength alone cannot solve the situation cleanly. Guan therefore begins thinking about whether lifespan can improve more than his cultivation realm. His panel has already transformed ordinary techniques after huge investments, suggesting a forbidden art might also be rewritten. The thought is dangerous because experimenting with a corrupt sword technique could consume tens of thousands of years without guaranteeing success. Yet Guan has more lifespan than any normal cultivator could ever spend, making impossible research at least theoretically affordable. Su-Han's crisis therefore becomes another test of what purchased time can accomplish beyond brute force breakthroughs. If 10,000 years can deepen a sword art, perhaps enough simulated cultivation can also remove the hatred poisoning its foundation. Guan refuses to promise anything until he sees Su-Han and confirms exactly how far the technique has already changed him. Meanwhile, rumors of the 100 Clans Assembly continue spreading through every valley and hall. Li Ya, No Xianzu, Dong Yu, and other young geniuses are becoming names ordinary disciples discuss as future rulers of their generation. Guoken watches that excitement from the side, hiding a fusion realm cultivation none of those public talents would expect. He has no interest in competing for the hidden dragon ranking, because a ranking is valuable only to people who need the world to recognize them. His real competition is against future danger, lifespan ceilings, and realms powerful enough to threaten the Medicine Valley. That difference lets Guan appreciate the young geniuses without feeling compelled to prove himself against them. It also allows him to support Li Ya's ambition rather than turning every relationship into a contest. Still, No Xian's dreamlike past lives remain unsettling because they suggest another person may possess an advantage outside normal cultivation rules. Guan decides to treat the eccentric genius carefully until he understands whether those dreams are memories, prophecy, or something stranger. Old Man Xian's recovery creates another mystery, because the supposedly fallen former sect leader continues rebuilding from qi refining without complaint. Guan leaves that secret alone, respecting the old man's decision to live anonymously, just as he wants others to respect his own.
The Medicine Valley has become a gathering place for people.
Hiding more than their visible cultivation suggests. Guan finds the irony comforting rather than threatening because shared secrecy creates a kind of unspoken balance. The fields continue expanding. Spirit dogs patrol the edges, utility disciples train, and high-grade herbs move slowly toward maturity. Every ordinary day increases the resources available for future pills, formations, favors, and lifespan. That steady growth matters more to Guan than a temporary place on any public ranking. His cultivation may rise through purchased years, but the life protecting that cultivation is built through patience rather than shortcuts. Su-Han's trouble also reminds Guan that power without a stable heart can become more dangerous than weak aptitude. This is why he never wants lifespan investment to replace judgment, relationships, or the discipline to stop when a path becomes wrong. The next stage of his plan is therefore not simply reaching another fusion layer. Guan must protect Su-Han, understand the forbidden sword, and keep his own identity separated while outside's powers begin closing in. At the same time, the 100 Clans Assembly is about to reveal whether Li Ya and No Seon can survive the ambitions they openly chase. Guan quietly prepares for both fronts, still appearing to everyone around him as a valley master obsessed with herbs. Su-Han's crisis pushes Guan to increase his nightly lifespan investment, because the 9th layer of fusion now feels increasingly necessary. He wants to help his disciple, but refuses to let that responsibility override every other danger surrounding the Medicine Valley. Simjin's explanation confirms the heaven-hating divine sword is a road that can end in madness rather than simple power. Guan therefore decides Su-Han must choose his own future, while Guan will offer one serious intervention at most. Another possibility remains in the background. Spend 10,000 years of lifespan trying to reforge the forbidden art itself. If enough simulated cultivation can remove the qi deviation flaw, Su-Han might keep the sword without becoming its victim, and postpones that experiment because proving such a rewritten technique would risk exposing his own impossible abilities. Inside the law enforcement hall, Suhan finally makes his decision and refuses to abandon the heaven-hating divine sword. His dead father passed down the technique, and Han sees it as the last remaining bond tying them together. Revenge matters more to him than safety, even after Guan promises not to force him into crippling his cultivation. Yaopan arranges a quiet escape from the Tahan sect because she understands Suhan has already chosen his road. Guan accepts the outcome, recognizing that strength does not grant him ownership over another person's heart. Yuke Gapop already chose a wrong path for Guan's sake, and now trains Dao evolution technique in hopes of recovering. Suhan chooses a different danger, willingly setting himself against the cultivation world to avenge his father. Walking through the city, Guan realizes grievance, love, loyalty, and hatred create conflicts no amount of raw cultivation can erase. The thought pulls him into a strange, self-forgetting state until he unknowingly walks onto the heaven-mending platform. When finally bumps into a stranger and awakens, surprised because no technique or spell has ever produced that sensation. The stranger asks whether Guan just experienced an epiphany, a rare moment of resonance between mind, heaven, and earth. A lifespan probe reveals the man is a fifth layer, crossing the void swordsman, hiding his aura beneath ordinary clothing. His name is Han Mong, a famous sword maniac from the Great Wu dynasty who came specifically to challenge Sword Venerable Budo. Han Mong explains that epiphanies cannot be taught or predicted, yet they can break realms or create world-shaking techniques. He once experienced one after spending 7 days beneath a waterfall while trapped at the 9th layer of Golden Core. That single night transformed Han Mong's sword heart and opened a path he had believed completely closed. Guan becomes interested because epiphanies may affect the lifespan ceiling in ways his panel cannot fully measure. Han Mong abruptly gathers spiritual power and announces his challenge loudly enough for the entire outer sect city to hear. In 1 month, he wants a duel outside the city against Sword Venerable Budo. If Han Mong loses, he promises to carve his own sword Dao on the wall for Tahan disciples to study. If Budo refuses or loses, Han Mong will add insulting words beside the giant righteous path calligraphy. Guan immediately backs away from the attention, but Han Mong turns toward him instead of the surrounding experts. Impressed by the earlier epiphany, the sword maniac invites himself to Guan's home to discuss Dao comprehension. Han Mong even promises to pass down his sword art, regardless of the duel's outcome. Guan reluctantly brings him to the Third Medicine Valley because refusing under thousands of watching eyes would create more suspicion. Zhao Rim recognizes Guan and nearly approaches, but Zhao Ilgam stops his son after identifying Han Mong's reputation. The sword maniac once killed a soul transformation cultivator, while only at nascent soul, proving he can fight across major realm gaps. At the Medicine Valley, Han Mong is surprised that the supposedly ordinary disciple controls an entire 100-mile herb territory. He admits he considered taking Guan as a disciple, but the sect's investment in the valley makes that politically awkward. Guan declines anyway, claiming he loves plants, dislikes fighting, and has no desire to chase high cultivation. Old Man Xian quietly watches the visitor and clearly recognizes the famous swordsman, though Han Mong does not recognize him in return. Their conversation turns back to Epiphany, and Han Mong describes how despair over his stalled realm once opened his sword, Dao. Gu An privately compares the story with his lifespan panel and wonders whether comprehension can raise ceilings rather than merely current cultivation. He has seen lifespan limits shift with realms, techniques, injuries, and treasures, but no simple rule explains every person's maximum. Guan therefore listens carefully, rather than assuming numerical information tells him everything about a cultivator. When Han Mong asks about Guan's own epiphany, Guan describes his realization about not controlling another person's fate. Han Mong interprets that detached mindset as extraordinary comprehension and praises Guan for letting go of ordinary attachments. The misunderstanding is useful because it explains Guan's calm without forcing him to reveal actual cultivation. Han Mong again offers his sword legacy before the coming duel, warning that he may die against Budo. Guan refuses because he already possesses several powerful sword arts and can improve them directly with lifespan. He maintains the weaker excuse that his spiritual root is poor, and he would rather enjoy 2 peaceful centuries than chase ascension. Han Mong eventually accepts the answer and decides the Valley Master's unusual state of mind may itself be a kind of Dao. After a day and night of discussion, the sword maniac leaves to search for another heir. Guan recommends Jiao Rim, knowing the young swordsman genuinely needs guidance and already studies the platform's sword intent. Old Man Xian later questions the visit, and Guan casually claims loyalty to the Tahan sect prevented him from accepting an outside master. The former sect leader believes him because years of farming and fair treatment toward utility disciples support that harmless image. News of Han Mong's challenge spreads through every Tahan city and attracts cultivators desperate to boldly see Budo's true face. Guan originally intended to ignore the duel, but the challenge grows too public for Budo's absence to remain harmless. Han Mong can kill across realms, so controlling a distant sword from only first-layer fusion would introduce unnecessary risk. Guan decides to solve that problem in the simplest way available to him. Buy 8 more fusion layers before the duel. Late at night, he uses infinite traceless mysterious heaven step to travel nearly 20,000 miles from the sect. He raises the lifespan barrier in a deep mountain region saturated with demonic and ghostly qi. The first 1,000-year investment carries Guan directly into the second layer of fusion. Another 1,000 follows. Then another, as the panel converts accumulated lifespan into centuries of cultivation insight. Higher layers become increasingly expensive, with later stages demanding roughly 3,000 years each. By the time Guan reaches the 9th layer, the full climb has consumed around 18,000 years. He still has more than 200,000 years remaining, making the enormous price uncomfortable but completely survivable. The real breakthrough begins, and Earth Qi surges toward his hidden location with far greater violence than before. Demonic beasts across the surrounding mountains roar as the environment reacts to the impossible rate at which Guan absorbs spiritual energy. One hidden creature releases pressure comparable to soul transformation, reminding Guan how dangerous this remote region actually is. A mountain-sized turtle demon begins moving through the darkness, with wandering ghosts circling it like an army. Guan realizes he never truly left the Tahan dynasty, despite traveling farther than entire mortal kingdoms. The discovery reinforces how enormous this cultivation world is, compared with the Earth he remembers from his previous life. According to Sim Jin, even the 9 dynasties together occupy only a small corner of the greater continent. Spiritual qi continues flooding Guan, explaining why simulated centuries are so difficult to reproduce instantly in the real world. The distance may reach tens of thousands of miles, making future breakthroughs even harder to hide. One puts that problem aside, because stopping halfway would waste both time and the lifespan already invested. His expanded divine sense discovers a nearby cave where a huge iron cauldron boils beside piles of white bones. 2 children, a boy and girl around 12 or 13, are tied against the wall, awaiting whatever monster owns the cave. The boy saws his wrists bloody against stone, while desperately trying to free himself, and the frightened girl. Heavy breathing approaches through the tunnel before either child can escape. Then the approaching captor's shadow vanishes, and violent chewing sounds echo outside the cave. The massive turtle demon has accidentally eaten the children's predator while wandering toward Guan's breakthrough disturbance. The children remain frozen in terror, unaware that a 9th-layer fusion cultivator is monitoring everything nearby. Guan continues absorbing qi because the breakthrough itself still requires hours, despite his massive lifespan investment. A normal fusion cultivator would accumulate this energy slowly across centuries instead of swallowing it in a single night. Guan waits patiently while the demonic region erupts around him, trusting the barrier and his current strength. Dawn finally breaks through clouds thick with demonic energy as the last stage of spiritual accumulation settles. Beneath the tree, Guan opens his eyes with the 9th layer of the fusion realm fully stabilized. The upgrade has multiplied divine sense, physical perception, and spiritual power far beyond his first-layer state. Han Mong's challenge now looks much safer, though Guan still refuses to treat a cross-realm genius casually. His next concern becomes the 2 children trapped inside the nearby cave rather than the monsters scattering through the mountains. Saving them was not part of the breakthrough plan, but Guan cannot ignore people placed directly inside his reach. The boy's refusal to surrender despite torn wrists has already caught Guan's attention. That kind of determination matters more to him than noble birth, public reputation, or the polished talent shown at assemblies. Guan therefore prepares to intervene, without revealing the full identity of the expert who suddenly appeared in their lives. Another hidden relationship is about to begin, created not by sect politics, but by chance in a remote demonic wilderness. For Guan, such accidents are becoming almost as influential as the deliberate plans he spends years building. The Medicine Valley may be his foundation, Yet, the world beyond it keeps delivering people whose futures become tied to his own. This time the connection starts with two terrified children, a dead captor, and a breakthrough that shook monsters for thousands of miles. Guan leaves the lifespan barrier knowing his secret realm remains undiscovered despite the enormous spiritual disturbance. He has successfully purchased 8 fusion layers in one night, while every public genius still measures progress in ordinary years. Now he turns away from his own cultivation and toward the children who survived long enough for him to notice them. Stabilizing at 9th layer fusion makes Guan more than 100 times stronger than his first layer self. For one dangerous moment, he thinks no first layer fusion cultivator could ever kill him across realms. The thought immediately alarms him because countless dead experts probably believed exactly the same thing before underestimating someone stronger. Guan forces himself back into caution and decides every future fight must be treated as potentially fatal. Maintaining the lifespan barrier during the breakthrough consumed more than 8,000 additional years. His reserve still looks enormous, but Guan now understands repeated high realm breakthroughs can drain even hundreds of thousands of years. He therefore needs more lifespan sources, rather than assuming his current wealth will last forever, and senses something condensing around his heart, suggesting the next great realm may depend on more than raw spiritual power. Curious about the difference in his new realm, he travels through the mountains at roughly 100 miles per step. His expanded divine sense soon returns to the two children he noticed while breaking through. Beside a river, the bloodied boy stands between the girl and a 20-foot wolf demon. The child can barely hold a heavy stone, yet still walks forward, rather than letting the monster reach his companion. Gwen changes into white robes and a wooden mask that blocks divine sense before appearing on a hill behind them. A lifespan probe on the boy produces a result more shocking than most great cultivators Guan has inspected. The 12-year-old has a lifespan ceiling of 9,999 years before even beginning cultivation. The girl beside him has an ordinary ceiling of roughly 230 years. Guan suspects the boy possesses extraordinary innate fortune or some hidden constitution powerful enough to break human records. When the wolf demon lunges, Guan releases a thread of sword chi between predator and children. The strike carves a massive trench beside the river and terrifies the monster into immediate retreat. Even after being saved, the boy keeps his stone raised when the masked stranger approaches. That caution earns Guan's approval because desperation has not destroyed the child's judgment. The boy finally asks whether the stranger is human or demon, and Guan answers through an older disguised voice. He offers to return them home, only for the girl to break down crying, because monsters already destroyed their village. The children explain that demons ate the adults and carried surviving children away to be boiled one after another. Their own turn was supposed to come during the night, until Guan's breakthrough shook the mountains and scattered their guards. They escaped at dawn, only to be discovered by the wolf demon before reaching safety. Guan is struck by how different their childhood is from his protected upbringing before joining the Sect. Pity alone might make him help. But the boy's impossible lifespan ceiling makes the decision far more complicated. A child with that much potential will attract enemies, possession attempts, sect politics, and luck-driven disasters as soon as he cultivates. One also notices the boy has already survived too many coincidences to treat them as ordinary chance. His captors fled because Guan happened to break through nearby. Then the turtle demon accidentally removed another threat. Guan arrived again exactly when the wolf demon was about to attack. The pattern feels like great fortune protecting the child, and Guan refuses to bring that unpredictable karma directly into his valley. He instead carries both children to a safer forest, where towns and sect territory lie within reachable distance. Guan gives each child healing pills, and their damaged bodies recover enough to begin learning cultivation. He asks whether they want to cultivate, because joining the Sect may be the safest long-term road available. The boy immediately asks whether Guan is an immortal, already looking at the masked stranger. It's like someone beyond ordinary humanity. Guan answers that he is only a man trying to become immortal, then agrees to teach them the first steps. His plan is to train them temporarily and let them enter the sect independently later, without connecting them to his real identity. Sending a genius of this level into the Sect also repays some of the spiritual chi Guan has secretly absorbed over decades. The children bow and call him master before Guan can properly refuse. Their desperate hope weakens his resistance, though he privately blames the boy's extraordinary luck, rather than his own soft heart. Guan teaches them Yangwood primordial chaos cultivation technique, one of his own core methods. He is not afraid to pass it down, because a future million-year lifespan reserve can always be used to improve the technique again. The boy understands the first level after hearing it once, confirming that his frightening ceiling reflects equally frightening comprehension. The girl needs far more explanation, so Guan spends most of the day teaching at her pace. By afternoon, the boy already senses spiritual power, while his companion is still struggling to remember the method. Guan does not criticize her because ordinary 5-root cultivators may need a month just to produce their first trace of qi. Before leaving at dawn, he tells the boy to protect his junior sister until he returns that night. Both children panic at the possibility their mysterious master may disappear forever after appearing only one day earlier, when promises to return, but warns that a cultivator cannot rely on a master walking beside him for an entire lifetime. The boy asks for new names, so the beginning of cultivation can also mark the beginning of a different life. Writes 2 names in the air using sword qi and gives the boy the name Anho. He hopes Anho becomes a vast sky protecting his junior sister, while also carving out a sky belonging to himself. The girl receives the name Ansim, carrying Guan's wish that she eventually finds peace, joy, and contentment. After leaving them, Guan returns to the Medicine Valley and finds Musim still drilling the disciples. Yuki Gapop stands among the trainees, but avoids Guan's eyes because shame over his past still weighs heavily. Yuki believes his crippled cultivation is deserved punishment for crimes committed while serving the law enforcement hall. Gin does not rush to comfort him, deciding honest reflection may be more valuable than easy forgiveness. Musim reports another spiritual disturbance during the night, weaker than the previous one but strong enough to alarm the sect. Guan casually claims the disturbance is why he returned early, preserving his harmless explanation once again. He prepares new clothes for Anho and Ansim before returning to inspect every section of the enormous Third Medicine Valley. One dead herb means lost future lifespan, so Guan refuses to trust a territory this valuable entirely to other people's eyes. At dusk, he travels back to the children and finds Anho waiting high in a tree for his return. And Sims has been asking whether their master abandoned them, while the boy pretends confidence he does not completely feel. When Guan appears, both children rush forward with relief and cling to him before remembering his strict demeanor. He tells them to cultivate seriously, because anyone who refuses to work may eventually be left behind. And Ho immediately asks whether good performance means Guan will never leave them. Guan answers that they must eventually join the Tahan sect and learn to protect themselves. He cannot promise permanent companionship, especially while keeping his real identity separated from their future. The children are disappointed, but Guan gives them clean clothes and fixes their appearance before returning to cultivation. He decides to spend nights teaching them, while managing the Medicine Valley during the day. The surrounding region is relatively safe from major demons, making it suitable for hidden training, without drawing attention. 1 month passes, bringing the date Han Mong publicly set for his duel with Sword Venerable Budo. The outer sect city becomes impossibly crowded with spectators from inner cities, main sect regions, and outside factions. Han Mong waits outside the south gate with his sword case planted before him, while cultivators debate whether Budo will appear. Zhao Rim now stands beside his new master, worried despite knowing Han Mong has little chance against the legendary swordsman. Gang Yong, Yaopan, Simjin, Zhao Ilgam, and countless other observers all gather in different positions around the city. Guan, however, is 15,000 miles away, teaching in Ho swordsmanship instead of standing anywhere near the audience. In only a few days, Ho has already reached the 3rd layer of qi refining. Guan decides the boy needs a real combat method and teaches him the Tai Chang startling divine sword. Ho memorizes the movements after seeing them once, turning a difficult lesson into something almost effortless. Guan finally understands why ancient experts become obsessed with genius disciples. Teaching one feels completely different from teaching ordinary people. And Sim watches from nearby, still struggling to gather her first stable spiritual power, and clearly aware of the growing gap. Guan tells Ho he is the only disciple currently receiving this sword and warns him not to disgrace it. He also realizes that connecting Ho to Sword Venerable Budo could someday protect the child from ordinary sect schemes. Any faction threatening, the boy would first need to consider whether it was provoking the mysterious sword immortal behind him. And Ho quickly begins producing genuine sword chi, advancing so fast that even Guan becomes nervous about what he has awakened. Without Guan's accidental intervention, this terrifying prodigy would have died in a demon cave before anyone discovered him. He privately apologizes to Li Ya, No Seon, and every other genius who dreams of becoming first under heaven. If Ho survives, Guan suspects that position may eventually belong to his disciple instead. Guan himself still wants something different, the end of the cultivation road, rather than temporary invincibility in one world. He stops the practice at noon and corrects Ho for caring too much about the physical weapon. A real swordsman, Guan explains, carries the sword in the heart until anything can become a blade. He tells both old children to pick ordinary leaves from nearby trees and hold them in front of him. When flicks one leaf toward the distance with only a trace of sword intent, the leaf erupts into terrifying sword power, tears open a 100-foot wide path through the forest, and continues toward the horizon. 15,000 miles away, Han Mong is reaching the end of his public deadline outside the South Gate. Just as spectators begin believing Budo will not answer, overwhelming sword intent suddenly approaches from the south. Han Mong opens his sword case and releases his own full aura, preparing to face an attack launched from a leaf across half the dynasty. Han Mong's blue sword curtain rises thousands of feet, but Guan's first leaf tears through it, almost without slowing. The leaf passes above Han Mong's head, whips his hair backward, and embeds itself in the city wall behind him. Spider web cracks spread from the impact, while experienced swordsmen instantly recognize the terrifying intent riding inside something so ordinary. Han Mong steadies himself, draws both swords from his case, and prepares to answer rather than surrender after one exchange. 15,000 miles away, and Ho jumps in excitement and asks his master to teach the spectacular technique he just witnessed. Juan answers that it is the same sword art already taught to him, only displayed with far deeper mastery. He takes in Sim's leaf next, and explains that true sword Tao eventually returns from grand spectacle to simple, unstoppable force. The second leaf drifts only several steps before suddenly accelerating toward the distant battlefield, like ordinary-looking lightning. Guan then moves both children away, keeping them far from any connection between their masked masters and sword venerable Budo. At the south gate, Han Mong launches all three swords and forms immense chi dragons that tear through forests and mountains. The watching cultivators retreat under the pressure, while another cold light approaches from beyond the horizon. This second leaf carries less visible power, yet Han Mong's instincts warn him it is far more dangerous than the first. The leaf instantly cuts through his three sword dragons and knocks every weapon away before he can rebuild the formation. Han Mong desperately activates a golden bell defense, but the leaf shatters it and pierces his right shoulder. The remaining force drags him backward until Guan deliberately pins him against the city wall, without bringing the structure down. Blood appears at Han Mong's mouth, and the entire cultivation world, watching the duel, falls silent. The great Wu sword maniac has been defeated by two leaves launched from 15,000 miles away. Spectators immediately connect sword venerable Budo with the legendary flying leaf sword immortal, discussed in older stories. Yapan watches the fading sword light with open envy, unable to imagine what realm produces power on that scale. Sim Jin reacts differently, rushing down with paper and brush to capture Han Mong's defeat before the scene disappears. Guan places Hoen and Sim inside a busy lakeside town and warns them never to mention their mysterious master. The children agree, though Ho privately concludes their master must be a famous devil expert whose reputation was somehow misunderstood. His reasoning is simple. A truly evil cultivator would never have saved two useless village children and taught them cultivation. Guan overhears the conclusion through lingering divine sense and finds the misunderstanding too amusing to correct. He removes the mask, changes into an ordinary Taoist robe, and enters a local inn to enjoy mortal life for a day. Street vendors, travelers, storytellers, and faint cultivator auras remind him of a world far removed from sect politics. A powerful divine sense briefly sweeps across the town, probably searching for the expert behind Han Mong's defeat. Guan ignores it, drinks alone by the window, and lets the day pass without hurrying home. After nightfall, he senses a weak thread of demonic chi entering a town that appears to contain almost no cultivators. Curious why a Foundation establishment demon would move so cautiously here, Guan follows the aura through the streets. Before reaching it, An elderly voice unexpectedly calls to him from a nearby courtyard. The old man is Zhang Chunu, someone Guan knew when both were far younger disciples around the Medicine Valley. Time has changed Zhang Chunu so completely that Guan almost fails to recognize his face and body. The former disciple explains he left the sect and chose this prosperous town as the place where he intends to die. Years earlier, Zhang Chunu fell in love with a female Yao named So Rian, who once saved him from monsters. He continued visiting her while pursuing cultivation, until eventually accepting that his own path to foundation establishment had ended. Instead of spending the rest of his life chasing a hopeless breakthrough, he left the sect and married her. Their Human-Yao union produced a son, but living together slowly weakened Zhang Chunu's spiritual power, blood, and chi. So, Rian eventually disappeared because she could not bear watching their relationship continue draining the man she loved. Zhang Chunu refuses to call her betrayal and says he has no regrets about choosing a mortal life with her. His only sadness is that her longer Yao lifespan would have made their final separation painful, no matter when it happened. A lifespan probe shows Zhang Chunu has only around 3 years remaining. Guan becomes unexpectedly sentimental, remembering the young man who once stood beside him when the Medicine Valley looked completely different. The weak demonic aura Guan followed finally enters the courtyard and turns out to belong to Zhang Chunu's son. The young half-Yao is already at second-layer foundation establishment, despite being only in his early 20s. His lifespan ceiling exceeds 2,000 years, making him another clear genius produced by unusual blood. Zhang Chunu introduces Guan as an old martial uncle, and the shy young man accepts the connection with obvious curiosity. Guan gives him a high-grade spiritual chi pill as a meeting gift, despite the family's repeated attempts to refuse. They spend the evening discussing old Medicine Valley companions, deaths, breakthroughs, wolf, and everything that changed during the decades apart. Zhang Chunu is delighted to hear Li Ya reached Golden Core because he always believed that reckless youth would eventually soar. Guansen stays until the old man becomes too tired to continue talking, then prepares to leave without being asked for anything. At the doorway, Zhang Chunu only asks Guan to cultivate well enough to see the world for him. Centuries later, the simple quest affects Guan more deeply than any treasure because it comes from someone who accepted its mortality without resentment. Outside, Guan overhears the father questioning his son about a fight earlier that day. The opponent was none other than Ho, who crossed paths with the half-Yao while exploring the town. The two children exchanged several moves without killing intent before separating, unknowingly creating another connection Guan may see again centuries later. Guan is amused by the coincidence because both boys possess the potential to become famous figures in their respective worlds. At dawn, he returns to Ho and Sim, who are cultivating on a cliff beneath the rising sun. 3 scratches mark Ho's cheek from the earlier fight, and the proud boy is still angry. He failed to find his opponent afterward. Guan leaves again for Sect business, ordering Ho to guard his junior sister until he returns by evening. The children immediately begin speculating about why their master appears only at night and refuses to reveal his true identity. Ho settles on the theory that their master is a top devil head whose name was unjustly blackened. And Sim wonders whether that means every unexplained trip involves terrifying demonic business. Ho answers that identity does not matter because their master saved them, taught them, and deserves loyalty. Back at the Third Medicine Valley, Guan discovers Sim Jean sitting in his attic, drawing Han Mong pinned against the city wall. Her picture is already detailed, but Guan borrows the brush and adds motion lines, shadows, and visual tension inspired by Earth comics. Sim Jean is stunned that a supposedly simple herb farmer can improve the feeling of movement with only a few strokes. Guan casually admits he knows a little painting, poetry, music, and other skills accumulated across his unusual life. Sim Jean then reveals a new obsession, finding Sword Venerable Budo and convincing the mysterious expert to become her Dao companion. She believes only a world-class cultivator can protect someone whose books and paintings constantly offend powerful people. Guan nearly laughs at the thought of Sim Jin searching everywhere for a man currently standing beside her. After she leaves, he listens to utility disciples enthusiastically praising Budo and enjoys the fame only because it remains disconnected from Guan. He refuses to let victory inflate his Dao heart and returns immediately to the practical business of hoarding more lifespan. Ninth layer fusion is already extraordinary, but Guan knows a realm that feels unbeatable today will eventually become another weak starting point. A full year passes before his hidden training arrangement with En-ho and En-sim begins changing. En-ho reaches the 9th layer of chi refining and becomes capable of protecting his junior sister during Guan's absences. He also completes Guan's test by killing the same wolf demon that once hunted them beside the river. Guan intentionally spared that beast earlier so the boy would someday face his own fear rather than inherit an easy victory. And Sim progresses more slowly, which is the main reason Guan has not yet sent both children into the Tahan sect. He wants them old enough to survive sect life and skilled enough that En-ho's monstrous talent does not leave the girl completely dependent. When Guan next visits the outer city, the heaven-mending platform is even more crowded with swordsmen from outside factions. Budo's victory over Han Mong, using 2 leaves, has spread throughout the cultivation world. The mysterious swordsman is now one of the most admired names among Tahan disciples, even though nobody has seen his face. Gang Yang uses the platform's fame to strengthen security and political control across the outer city. Guan sees Han Mong training Jiao Rim, exactly as hoped, berating the young swordsman while the disciple struggles with difficult sword Dao concepts. The scene confirms Guan's recommendation worked, because Jiao Rim now has a teacher capable of forcing his talent beyond comfortable limits. Guan enjoys the result from a distance, rather than inserting himself into another master-disciple relationship. He already has En-ho and En-sim consuming enough hidden attention, even if the sect knows nothing about either connection. The more famous Budo becomes, the more dangerous it would be for Guan to let his real disciples casually mention their master. This is why every lesson outside the sect still happens under a mask, altered voice, and carefully controlled identity. Guan also keeps studying the platform's visitors, because fame attracts not only geniuses, but old demons and hidden experts. Each probe gives him more information about the true ceiling of the cultivation world around the Tahan sect. The pattern is increasingly clear. Extraordinary beings can hide beneath ordinary appearances for centuries. That realization only strengthens Guan's commitment to never judging danger from visible cultivation alone. Zhang Chunu's approaching death also remains in his thoughts, reminding him that lifespan numbers represent lives rather than abstract resources. Guan can steal years from enemies and spend them on cultivation, but most people around him still receive only one ordinary lifetime. The contrast makes his relationships more precious, even as it forces him to accept that many will end long before his own road does. For En-ho, Guan wants something different. Enough talent, technique, and protection to survive for centuries, rather than become another brief memory. That hope is why the boy receives guidance. Guan never offered ordinary disciples, despite the risks attached to raising such a prodigy. As another year passes, Guan continues farming publicly, while quietly preparing the moment En-ho and En-sim must finally enter the sect. Guan continues scanning the heaven-mending platform and discovers another hidden expert beneath the appearance of a young female disciple. The lifespan panel identifies her as a second-layer fusion realm ghost, with a ceiling of more than 50,000 years. She is the Nightbloom Ghost Mother. Yet her disguised aura looks no stronger than Foundation establishment to everyone else. Guan realizes even ghosts possess finite lifespan, meaning death does not automatically free a being from the limits of time. Humans live shorter lives than many other races, but their advantage may be faster cultivation and greater adaptability. The discovery reinforces a lesson Guan keeps learning. The Tahan sect contains demons, ghosts, and hidden monsters beneath countless ordinary faces. As long as those beings do not threaten his valley, he has no interest in exposing them simply for existing. Han Mong spots Guan on the platform and warmly drags him toward Jiao Rim for another unwanted sword lesson. The swords maniac feels no shame about losing to Budo and instead views the 2-leaf defeat as priceless guidance. He believes the mysterious swordsman could have killed him instantly, so being spared means the attack carried deliberate teaching. Guan has already understood Han Mong's formulas after one explanation, but deliberately sits through repeated lessons to preserve his weak image. Zhao Ligam watches from nearby and cannot understand why a great sword maniac treats this ordinary valley master with such patience. After escaping the lesson, Guan vows to avoid Han Mong whenever possible, because pretending to learn slowly is exhausting. He finishes ordinary errands and visits Gang Yang, who immediately gives him another storage pouch filled with high-grade herb seeds. Even the lowest seeds are 4th grade. And Guan's genuine happiness pleases the Grand Elder more than exaggerated flattery could. Gang Yang warns him not to sell azure vine fruit, because its ability to repair chi, blood, and bone makes it almost priceless. Guan agrees because his valley now produces enough resources that selling rare treasures for ordinary spirit stones makes little sense. Gang Yang also says the Medicine Valley contributes to her own merit as she seeks an even higher position. She promises that one day she may obtain a golden core and use a secret art to push Guan into that realm. Guan thanks her sincerely, while privately wondering how she would react to learning her weak grand disciple already stands at 9th layer fusion. Just before he leaves, Gang Young suddenly asks whether Guan writes books. His heart jumps, but he calmly acts confused until she decides not to press the question. After Guan departs, Gang Young pulls out the Tahan's secret records, proving the embarrassing manuscript has reached her too. Summer returns, and Guan visits Anho and Sim after another year of hidden training. Anho is now 13 and has mastered the movements and mind method of the Tai Chang's startling divine sword. Rather than add another sword technique, Guan decides to broaden his combat foundation with a powerful leg art. The new technique is Whirlwind Shadowless Kick, an advanced method related to the withered wind leg taught elsewhere. Guan demonstrates one kick and releases thousands of leg shadows that flatten forest and crack a distant mountain wall. Even the clouds above seem pushed aside, leaving both children staring at the destructive scale of a single movement. And Ho immediately wants the technique. Although Quan reminds him, the Tai Chang's sword remains stronger when shown at full power. As usual, the boy memorizes the new movements after one demonstration and begins improving with every repetition. Reaching that speed, Guan finally decides keeping such talent hidden in the wilderness much longer would become harmful rather than protective. The Tahan Sect can give An Ho foundations, resources, competition, and opportunities Guan cannot provide while maintaining anonymity. And Sim's aptitude remains ordinary. But Guan refuses to separate the pair simply because their cultivation speeds differ. He gives them another half-year together before planning to send both children toward the sect. Guan expects An Ho to become famous within a decade and wonders how quickly the boy will catch public geniuses like Li Ya. At Xi'an Valley, another storyline returns. When No Xi'an finally comes back from the 100 Clans assembly, he now wears blue and carries himself with the easy confidence of someone who achieved exactly what he promised. No Xi'an reveals a golden token, proving he won the Hidden Dragon ranking and became champion of the assembly. Nahan and Yo Ryun are pleased, although their mood changes when No Seon describes how brutally he handled several imperial competitors. Guo Yu from the Geek clan challenged him briefly, but few other participants could make No Seon take the fight seriously. Liya impressed him with determination, yet No Seon still defeated the prince badly enough to break multiple limbs. Guan's mood immediately darkens because victory did not require treating Li Ya with that much unnecessary force. Yo Ryun also questions why No Seon injured a prince important to the emperor when a clean knockout would have settled the contest. No Seon refuses to apologize, arguing that Li Ya entered a martial competition and therefore accepted the possibility of serious injury. The disagreement exposes how differently No Seon views people, despite his cheerful desire to teach others. Then he notices Guan and immediately demands payment for winning the championship exactly as their bargain promised. Guan agrees to learn a technique, partly because refusing would expose the challenge as meaningless, and partly because he wants to study No Seon more closely. Guan specifically requests anything except swordsmanship, eventually choosing the Black Tortoise Raging Wave Palm. It is the same palm technique No Seon used when defeating Li Ya, giving Guan additional reason to examine every detail. No Seon demonstrates the movements and recites the formula, while Guan understands far more than he pretends. Guan deliberately acts hopelessly slow, forcing the champion to repeat the lesson from morning until nearly evening. No Seon becomes exhausted and openly questions whether anyone can truly possess comprehension as poor as Guan's performance suggests. Yo Yun excuses the weakness by claiming the Valley Master's visible cultivation was built mostly through pills and farming resources. Nahan reminds No Seon that people possess different gifts and that Guan's talent clearly lies in planting rather than combat. The explanation protects Guan perfectly, while No Seon becomes even more determined to teach him successfully. Guan escapes before the next lesson, but future visits turn into a series of different techniques. No Seon refuses to stop teaching. The situation is almost comical, one of the greatest young geniuses alive, is desperately trying to make a hidden fusion expert look competent. Guan continues failing on purpose because allowing sudden mastery would be far more suspicious than enduring no seance frustration. By year's end, heavy snow covers the mountains, and Guan finally leads in Ho and in Sim toward the outer Sect city. He remains dressed in white with a wooden mask and altered voice, determined to end the master identity before the children enter Sect life. A few hundred miles from the city, Guan stops and tells them the remaining road must be walked without him. Once their spiritual roots are tested, the Tahan sect will decide where each child belongs. And Sim immediately asks when they will meet their master again, already sensing that this separation is different from previous absences. Guan tells them their meeting was accidental fate and warns them never to speak publicly about the masked cultivator who taught them. He claims no repayment is needed and tries to cut the relationship cleanly before it can endanger either child. And Ho drops to his knees, and Sim follows, both bowing repeatedly despite Guan's attempt to sound emotionally detached. The boy's forehead splits against the frozen ground, but he keeps bowing because gratitude matters more than the pain. And Ho promises he will cultivate until his name is famous beneath heaven and help his master whenever called. At 14, his resolve already carries the weight of someone far older than his years. Guan sweeps his sleeve and fills the mountain pass with wind and snow before leaving them one final instruction. If Ho truly wants to repay him someday, the boy should first survive long enough to live another 1,000 years. When the snow clears, Guan has vanished, leaving the two children facing the final road alone. And Ho stands first, repeats that they cannot fail their master, and leads Sim toward the outer Sect city. Guatan returns to the Medicine Valley, but his divine sense remains fixed on them, despite the supposedly final farewell. For days, he splits his attention between herbs and the children's journey until both reach the city safely. And Ho reveals ninth layer chi refining during registration, immediately shocking the elder responsible for receiving new disciples. One intentionally chose this city because powerful cultivators nearby make possession attempts or private kidnapping much harder. The sect soon tests Ho's spiritual root and discovers a heavenly grade talent unseen in the dynasty for centuries. News spreads so quickly that even high-ranking elders become involved in protecting and relocating the 14-year-old genius. Guan hears none of this directly from Ho, which keeps the separation between Masked Master and Valley Master intact. Instead, the story reaches him during a new year, gathering inside the Medicine Valley. Yaopan, Jingum, Musim, Sochian, Yu and other familiar disciples sit together while utility workers celebrate at another table. Conversation turns toward the impossible new recruit, whose heavenly spiritual root alarmed even the main city. Several disciples feel their own decades of cultivation become meaningless beside a boy already approaching foundation establishment at 14. Musim repeats old legends about heavenly spiritual roots so confidently that Yaopan begins wondering where a utility disciple learned so much. The discussion grows louder as everyone speculates which elder, faction, or inheritance will eventually claim the new genius. Guan listens without revealing that he personally taught the boy's first cultivation method and gave him the name Ho. His smile is difficult to hide because the child, rescued from a demon cave, has safely reached the place chose for him. The result also proves Guan's decision not to keep Ho hidden forever was correct. Talent this extreme needs a larger world, stronger rivals, and resources beyond what secret nighttime lessons can provide. And Sim's future remains less certain, but she enters the same sect with the person Guan raised to protect her. Guan has no intention of controlling every step they take from this point forward. He will watch when necessary, intervene only when the danger truly exceeds their own road, and otherwise let both children live. That principle is the same realization that once triggered Guan's epiphany. Strength cannot become an excuse to own another person's fate. Outside the celebration, the Medicine Valley remains covered in winter quiet, with herb fields waiting beneath the snow for another spring. Guan still possesses hidden realms, multiple identities, and a lifespan reserve capable of buying cultivation ordinary experts cannot imagine. Yet the achievement that pleases him most tonight is not another breakthrough, kill, or increase on the panel. It is knowing that Ho survived, entered the Tahan sect, and now has a real chance to climb under his own power. Ju returns to his farming life smiling, quietly looking forward to seeing how high the disciple he once rescued will eventually rise.